everybody? Episode 17 here. Last video I definitely said 15, should have been 16, but I corrected it in the title and the thumbnail and stuff like that. So I figured it would eventually happen, and it got me on the last video that I posted. So that's unfortunate, but I've been busy on the car. Unfortunately, I'm back to work, so I didn't get as much progress done as I wanted, but I'm really happy with how everything's going. And I got some parts in, just a couple little things, and then started checking some other stuff. Give you a quick update of where I'm at with the car. So I took out the rest of the sheet metal on both sides. All right. And then I also cleaned up all the seam sealer that was left in this area. And then any of the spot welds that sat high, like all these spot welds down here, all those nice and ground down. So really I just got a good fresh canvas right in this area and right over there to build off of. Over here, I'm going to go ahead and plate this whole area. So I'll basically kind of do like a little C-channel and just kind of go over the top of all this and plate it all in and weld it all up. I'll do the same over there. And then that'll be a good spot for the #1 bar, rear suspension, and all that stuff. The last video you seen that I got the engine and trans in. I really want to get a seat soon, and that way I can kind of see how much foot room I got, how close I can move the seat up to the transmission area, how much room I'll have behind the seat. I may change how I'm doing some things, but yeah, I definitely want to get a seat soon. What I got going on over here though is the rear axle narrowing. Basically I built my own narrowing kit. I don't know if you really want to call it a jig or a fixture. It's probably more of a fixture, narrowing fixture. There's a company on eBay called Lead Mine Products. Right there, Lead Mine Products. And he sells the pucks that you need for basically any rear end. So the kit that I got was the 9-inch and 8.8 outer bearing, and then the big and small forward inner bearings, which I think covers most of their axles, the 9-inch and the 8.8. So these particular ones are for the 8.8. These will go basically where the diff bearings would be in the axle housing. The axle housing sitting down there. So these will bolt in to the caps where the diff bearings would go in. And then these are our new Mosier ends. These are part number 7750. Mosier makes them, and they are the big 9-inch bearing. So they allow you to run the set 20 bearing and seal setup. If you like Google, I believe Timken makes them. They're set 20s. It's a bearing and a seal setup. And then it has the bolt pattern to run the factory Explorer brackets, so that I can run the Explorer 11.2-inch rotors and the factory Explorer rear caliper. I don't know if there's any trick upgrades out there or like cheap caliper swaps, but I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but with the weight of the vehicle and everything, I think just some good aggressive pads and like a drilled and slotted rotor should be more than plenty for this car. So these ends here will go on the axle. So I'll cut off the factory axle ends and then weld these in their place. They'll sit inside this guy here and kind of lock it into place on the axle. So you buy these off of eBay. These are the pucks you buy for whatever axle you're going to be narrowing. And then you have to buy a shaft. This is a solid 1.25 inch, 1018 cold roll. So these things hold a pretty good tolerance just right off of your steel mill. I don't know exactly what the spec is on them, but I'm showing you how I double check to make sure that I don't have a bent one. Or I should say I don't have like a severely bent one. I'm imagining that most of them are going to come with some kind of bend. They're just it's raw steel at the end of the day. It's not ground. It's not precision ground. It's not machined or anything like that. This particular piece was they had it cut, so I didn't have to pay to have it cut, and it's 81 inches. Most people won't need something that long. Usually a 60 or a 72 inch would be plenty, but this one's 81 and just is what it is. I got a little extra. So what I did here, and there's a couple different ways you can do, so you definitely don't need 2 indicators. You don't need 2, you only need 1, but I have 2 different kinds to show you the different options and different way you could like set up your indicator depending on what you have available to you. And then yesterday what I did is I actually laid the bar right on this. This is a 90-degree square from Genuine Metals. You could use a square like this, or you could use a traditional V-block as well. So you could actually just set this bar on a traditional V-block. So you could use a V-block, you could use a square if you have something like this to set it in. Really, you just need something accurate to hold it still. You could probably even use like a little square like these ones. Or what I attempted, and what you could also probably do, is put it in the rear end housing. I'm sorry, I didn't attempt this, but I thought about doing it. Put these in the rear end housing that you have, that you didn't cut apart. All right, lock it in there, and then set your indicator on there while you rotate it. So I measured, this is like 47, 48 inches from bearing to bearing, okay, from roller to roller here. I got my lock collars on to kind of hold it center. Now these lock collars, while you're doing this, you don't want them completely tight, so there's a little bit of an air gap there. But when you're building, you definitely want them a little tighter than that. Then I just measure center to center. I get me a center to center mark, and this is where I'm going to set up my dial indicator. Now there's 2 different ways to do it. You can use this style dial indicator or this one. This is actually a height gauge for an engine block. So this is for measuring engine block height gauges, but if you have just a traditional dial indicator, you could use the same way. This one right here is a cheap Amazon one that is getting a little messed up. I don't know if it's got some metal shavings in there from being in the fab shop or what, but I may have to replace this. And then this is actually, I don't know who made it for comp cams, but I can't imagine it's the best quality. So after you got it all set up, you just want to roll it. And I've been getting 7 to 8 thousandths of an inch pretty consistently. Now, 7 to 8 thou is, I mean, virtually nothing. Most people that build these rear ends, you know, they're just using like V-blocks or C-channel. You know, they're using V-blocks or C-channel to like clamp the housing ends and like hold it straight, or they're using levels or measurements, you know. So really anything like this with an 8 thou bend is going to be far superior for keeping the thing straight. Just for a reference, this right here is 8 thou. So roughly 2 sheets of paper. So that's all this thing is bent over a 4-foot span. That's pretty good for something that isn't precision ground. For reference, I think I did the math yesterday. It was like $270 or something is what I spent on the bar and the pucks, everything that I needed to do this, versus the Mittler's Bro kit, which is a great kit. It's gorgeous. I've used it before. You know, it comes with a precision ground rod and the whole deal. That kit was like $660. So literally half as much for something that's doing, I would say, within 90% of the same quality, probably 95, 98% of the same quality. You're paying half as much. You just got to do a little more work. You know, you got to have some tools to check it, right? To double check that what you're using is good. You got to confirm that there's no burrs on this. You know, when I got this home, I sanded it with some Scotch-Brite. I cleaned it really good, sanded it with some Scotch-Brite by hand, and then re-cleaned it. I made sure all the pucks fit good. So when you slide the puck on, you know, you're looking for like what feels like almost a light drag. There's very little rock. So, you know, another good way is like if you push at the top or the bottom, does it feel like it's grabbing? And then that means that it's like really tight and square. And this one does feel like it's got a little grab to it. And so you push in the center though, and it's nice and smooth. So really you just got to do your due diligence. You got to make sure that it's good. There's no burrs on it. You got to clean it, and you can save yourself a ton of money. I hope that can help you, and some of this stuff can apply to other things, and I hope you learned a little bit, and you guys have a great night. Thank you.